I'm going to apologise in advance if my energy's a bit off. I'm currently in a bit of a downer. I wanted to make this video not addressing anything or really out of a necessity to. It's more me addressing some thoughts and feelings I've had on a very specific subject. So I haven't looked into it too much in terms of how long it's been a thing, but as far as I'm aware, since about 2019, maybe a bit before, it's been quite a popular trend on TikTok to fake having disorders and pretending to be mentally ill like it's something to strive for. And I've known these videos have existed since at least 2019, but I never gave them the time of day because I knew they would just be stupid and cringy. But I was working on a commission piece the other day, and YouTube was just playing off, like, it was just on autoplay, just like picking and choosing whatever it felt like. And this channel called Retro Phantom or Retro Phenomena, something like that, was looking at some of these TikToks and tearing them down, basically. And I kind of stopped and watched a couple of the videos entirely, like completely fucking forgot I was meant to be doing a commission piece. And I'd never realised how severe it got in terms of how bad this has taken off and has kept up for. So for a bit of background on myself, at the age of 8, I was clinically diagnosed with ADHD and Tourette syndrome. My Tourette's fortunately isn't like the one where it's uncontrollable tics and vocal outbursts. Mine are referred to as simple tics. Just stuff like if someone says a word in a funny way, I might repeat it, or like I'd repeat a sentence, or like grunting. It's basically just like clearing the throat here. And blinking. If I'm made aware of my blinking, I blink harder, I blink faster, and it's like no amount of blinking satisfy the need to blink. The issue behind this kind of Tourette's is, while it's not like an extroverted reaction, if that's the right word, it's not openly outward unless you're really paying attention. If I don't meet the requirements, it's like an itch under the skin. It's just like this uncomfortable build-up, like when you try to stifle a cough, or if you miss a sneeze, but it's like, it's constant, like, missed sneeze feeling, and it gets uncomfortable to the point where when you finally do get to act on these, it might end up a little bit more severe than if you just allowed it to happen. This mostly happens with the grunting, and I don't know if this is part of Tourette's or if it's something else, but I have this thing where if I touch something with one hand, I have to touch it the exact same way with the other. I don't know if maybe it's a form of OCD or anything like that. I assume it was part of, or it's a part of the Tourette's, because Tics change. Tics are never the same as you progress. They might linger for a while, but at the very least for me, my tics haven't stayed the same. So the grunting is something that's only popped up really in the last, like, 10 years. It's been the longest staying one. Before that, it was, like, sniffing really hard. There's a remnant of that where I, like, you might have seen it in a lot of the videos where, like, I, like, itch my nose. But it's none of it's been the worst it could be. There are some people who have, like, palilalia, corpalalia, like the ones where it is, like, audio outbursts, swearing out loud, like the painful jerking of the body. I don't have that. And I also have ADHD. ADHD has been something I've learned to deal with over the years. I've had coping mechanisms. Like it's like a thing where I don't know how to explain it. In school, anyone with ADHD can tell you that, like, getting through school and learning a new skill set is difficult, more difficult than a normal person. And I have had employers and work colleagues who have berated me on the job for not being able to pick up a simple task because it genuinely, like, I function off of very specific instructions if I'm asked for something. Like, my brain cannot handle vague. If you say, oh, grab me an item, it's over there. Over there is way too vague. And then at every stage I get to where I'm now in that area, I will then ask several questions to whittle it down to the point where people do get annoyed. But I explain I have ADHD. I explain I have Tourette syndrome, among other things. But it's why in unscripted videos, like when I cover like game leaks, or if I share thoughts and opinions on what I think an upcoming game may or may not have, I am constantly struggling to find words because my brain and my mouth act codependently or independently from each other, I suppose. I don't know what the where essentially I have to think. I suppose you can consider it like translating, like someone who speaks a different language and then tries talking in English. You know, they have to, like, talk, and then eventually they become fluent, and it's, like, not a problem. But my brain is constantly at that stage where it never became fluent, I suppose. Talking about what's on my mind, being descriptive, and, you know, trying to get my point across doesn't happen. Well, if it does, it's very rare. I tend to ramble, get off track, like go on tangents, stories within stories. It's why, as again, in a few of the videos where I'm not reading off a script, I kind of repeat points, or it seems like I'm going somewhere, but then say something entirely different. That's why there's a lot of awkward cuts, because I go to say something, but I blank entirely. Like, I can't find the word. And then I'm trying to think of the word, but then at the same time, I'm forgetting words. I can have moments of clarity like this, where my brain knows what needs to be said, and it can just put the words out in the right order for the most part. But this entire video, to this point, I have been trying my hardest to make sure that the words are correct, that I'm not going on side tangents, and it's failed. like 5 minutes ago, there was a point I wanted to make, and I can't remember it. A lot of people assume that ADHD is low attention span and running around like an absolute lunatic. And it's so much more than that, which is why seeing things like this on TikTok with people like Tix and Roses, who everyone knows was like one of the worst offenders for it and got called out entirely. There's a few based around ADHD which just don't happen. Like in really severe cases, you'll see someone, I can't remember the video, but there was a guy who was mowing the lawn and someone said to him like, well, what do you want for dinner? And he drops, like, leaves the lawnmower on, leaves it, and then walks off to sort out his dinner. And the only reason people don't pull that one into question is because I believe he does state in the video that he was clinically diagnosed. Which doesn't prove anything, essentially, to say that you're clinically diagnosed against self-diagnosed. I personally don't believe in self-diagnosis, just because you can get so many details wrong. A friend of mine explained that a lot of disorders and mental illness have a like a crossover, like an overlap, where they can share specific symptoms. Like, it's very vague terms, like an umbrella catch-all kind of. But the video that annoyed me was a TikTok of a woman who started to do a dance on TikTok. Literally did like one spin and then just left the room with the caption, "I hate when my ADHD does that." It doesn't work like that. Like impulsive behavior is part of ADHD. Like, you might be doing one thing, then you'll switch to another. You might be in one room doing something, then you might leave and do another, but it's never as severe as you literally just drop everything on the spot, cancel all actions, clear the queue, and then leave. There's been times where it's like 11:30 at night, going on midnight, and I have come into this room and started reorganizing. And my girlfriend's not happy about it, but again, it's like an impulse. It's like this overwhelming feeling that you have to do this, that you have to get this done. I do have like other diagnoses with things like bipolar disorder, anxiety, and a few other things. They get faked as well. But I'm not here to talk about that. There's this whole DID thing as well, where I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to fall into that trap, but there are a lot of individuals who are faking DID, or are at least allegedly faking DID, which in itself is just disgusting. But it was seeing the people with Tourette's, and it's never a Tourette's like mine. It's never the more subdued side of Tourette's. It's never the simple tics Tourette's. I think the only time I've ever seen someone with Tourette's similar to mine was on an Anthony Padilla video where he was talking to people with Tourette's, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a stand-up comedian, and his Tourette's fall more in line with mine, and that's about the only time I've ever seen that kind of Tourette's represented. To be fair, like I've never actually gone out of my way to find videos or anything like that on people with like just simple tics. But to have someone misrepresent you, to misrepresent your struggles. Because no one asks to be mentally ill. No one likes to struggle. Ask anyone with ADHD if they enjoy zoning out mid-conversation with someone, trying their hardest to maintain concentration, but then to forget more or less an entire conversation, or trying to like pick up a conversation by trying to figure out an appropriate response. Ask them if they enjoyed struggling through school, because the answer would be no. I would go as far as to say I was villainized in school. Like, as soon as I got the ADHD diagnosis and the teachers were made aware, my school life changed. It wasn't a case of, they were putting things in place to make my learning experience easier. I literally, in a class of 30-ish kids who were all sat around tables at like 6 or 7 a table, I was in the back of the classroom on a table on my own, never allowed to join in with group activities. I wasn't allowed to go on school trips because I was seen as a danger. Whenever things like class assemblies came up or school plays, I was always relegated to a role that had me literally standing still in the background somewhere. The Tourette's as well. The time I got diagnosed with Tourette's was really unfortunate. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but the TV show Big Brother had started up again in the UK around this time, and there was a guy on there called Pete something. I don't remember his surname. I just remember his name was Pete, and he had like complex tics. He would like hit himself and call people a wanker and say meow a lot. And my diagnosis came essentially soon after Big Brother had started. And whenever I told someone I have Tourette's, they never believed me, because I wasn't hitting myself, I wasn't randomly jerking, I wasn't randomly swearing. A lot of people assume that the swearing part of Tourette's is Tourette's, when it's probably one of the more rarer forms of it. But because I wasn't doing that, no one believed me. The school didn't believe me. Family members didn't believe me. Some family members still don't believe me, even though I'm old enough now to understand and have looked into my Tourette's specifically, to explain to them why I have Tourette's but not the Tourette's that they expect, and it doesn't matter. I didn't ask for this. It's something I still struggle with to this day, to this very moment. It has made my life difficult, and any steps you take to kind of mitigate it as much as possible oftentimes don't feel like they're working, even with professional help, even with medication. It leads into other issues, like ADHD, for example, has been tied to things like bipolar, depression, anxiety. So it's no surprise that I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It's no surprise that I'm depressed a lot. It's no surprise I'm anxious all the time over nothing. And yet there's people who think that this is something to be romanticized, something that is quirky, something that is a like a chosen characteristic. Like, they want to stand out, they want to seem individual. What better way to do that than to be broken? Get all that sympathy and get all the people paying attention to you and asking you questions and calling you brave and all this shit. Like, I've never once in my life been told I'm brave for taking retail work while I suffer from immense amounts of anxiety and depression. You know, I've never once been told I am a strong individual for fighting off admittedly simple but still very uncomfortable tics. Because ultimately no one really gives a shit. A lot of people will say, you know, I'm all for mental health, but the moment you start presenting real symptoms, you start showing them the real side of it, that's not what they see in movies, TV or TikTok. They don't want to know. They distance themselves. And that's what happened in my childhood and most of my adult life. As soon as I mention I have ADHD and they say, yeah, that's fine, don't worry about it. But then the moment those things and aspects of ADHD, Tourette's, anxiety, depression start to show up, they step back. Then they try to I literally had one guy tell me that it's all in my head. I just need to rewire my brain. And you'd think I would if I could, you know, like, fucking, if it was as simple as just changing your mindset, I would be a fucking millionaire by now. You know, I'd have a much better quality of life. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have a shit life. I don't. You know, I've been with my girlfriend 7 years. We have our own place. You know, I live comfortably, but only as comfortable as having depressing thoughts, not wanting to leave the house for days, if not weeks at a time, because you feel like you're going to vomit from the build-up of even just putting your clothes on to go outside. It's overwhelming. But to be told time and time again that I just need to cheer up, I need to eat healthier, I need to exercise. Like, I'm not in the best of health, yeah, but a healthier diet and exercise does not change the fact that there's a chemical imbalance in my brain. It doesn't help the fact that I have these things that are outside of my control. And to have people continuously insinuate that I do have control, you know, I just need to pray it away or some shit, that proves, at least to me, that society still isn't caught up with how to deal with people with disorders and mental health issues. I think I'm going to leave it there. I just kind of needed to get all this off my chest. I know this was meant to be like a rant on TikTok and whatnot, but I feel like that was something I needed to get off my chest, because, yeah, it's not fun, and it's not fair, and it's really not fair to be represented in such a wrong way by people online who just want to get the attention. Yeah.